Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for having us here, and special thanks to the organizers of the conference for inviting us to share our thoughts, our work in this area, and also some of the insights that may be useful for the dairy industry. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Kavita Karnik, and I lead the nutrition research, nutrition communications, and the regulatory affairs team globally for Tate & Lyle. The agenda for this session today will be just to remind you, of course, you are the experts, but just to remind you of how dairy is an important component of a healthy and balanced diet, but then also to talk about what is gut health, how can dairy impact gut microbiota and health, a role of dietary fibers in the diet, and some of the opportunities and challenges this brings for the industry. Let's just remind ourselves of what's in dairy foods. Of course, we associate dairy with high intake of calcium, and that's very true. Calcium is essential for muscle contraction, bone health, but in addition, dairy also has protein, which is really essential for the growing children, but also for structure, growth, and maintenance of various tissues in the body. Dairy is also a very good source of potassium, which is needed for muscle contraction and nerve signals. Dairy is also a great source of phosphorus, which is important for bones and teeth. Dairy is a good source of vitamin B12, but also dairy is sometimes associated with high saturated fats, which is something that we try to avoid in our diets in excess quantity. Having just seen what is contained in dairy food, you may rightly assume that dairy food brings a lot of health benefits. Dairy, again, because of its calcium content, is very useful for bone health and development, especially in young children and postmenopausal women. Dairy, some of the nutrient content in dairy, such as iodine, are important for fetal development, so very important for pregnant women. Dairy is also associated with cardiometabolic health in a positive way. Fermented dairy products especially have been associated with lowering blood pressure. Dairy is associated with improved gut health, and that's where the majority of the talk today is going to be. And then some of the dairy components, some of the food matrices in dairy industry has been associated to help with weight management if consumed with low fat and portion controlled energy restricted diet. Dairy, rightly so, again, based on these benefits, is included in dietary guidelines for almost every country in the world. For South Africa especially, Department of Health's guidelines for South African adults and children specifically call out the dairy intake by saying have milk, mass, or yogurt every day. However, the average daily intake of a South African adult, which stands at about 124 grams a day, is well below the recommended for adults, which is about 500 ml per day. So there's a lot of opportunity to enhance the health benefits provided by dairy by making dairy consumption more mainstream and also making it easier for consumers to choose dairy. We looked at the dairy, and then I'm sure you're wondering what's this connection with gut health, but let's start by just reminding ourselves what gut health actually means for us. Gut health is not a new phenomenon, although we have been hearing about it a lot since the pandemic. Dairy health and the importance of gut health especially goes back as far as Hippocrates, who said all diseases begin in the gut. The importance of gut in maintaining health and wellness has been known for centuries and appears in various disguises in various traditional medicines, herbal medicines, and modern medicine as well. What does gut health mean for us? Gut is a very important organ. Gut, it's the first port of entry for pathogens. It's a very easy entry for pathogens. So it needs to protect the entry of harmful pathogens in the body. But at the same time, it is a great and the most important entry point for absorption of nutrients, dietary components. So it's critical that the gut provides highest level of protection against pathogens, but it needs to be minimally hypersensitive to the dietary antigens. What I mean by that is you don't want the gut to react hyperactively whenever you try a new food. So that balance between allowing the beneficial nutrients and new foods without being hypersensitive, but at the same time reducing the entry of harmful pathogens in the body, are very tricky balances, that balance functions that the gut carries out for the individual. A healthy gut contains a variety of microorganisms, and that's what you hear about gut microbiota. Just as some key facts, colon, the large intestine, is one of the most densely populated microbial habitat on Earth. We have about more than 100 trillion microorganisms in our gut, which accounts for 100 to 200 grams of our body weight. So that's not something we could ignore. And that's something to be nurtured and treasured and used for the benefit of improving health for human bodies. As I said, gut health is linked to a variety of positive health outcomes. The level of evidence available for these health outcomes varies. The research is ongoing and is very active in certain areas, and some areas are very well established. As just an example, there are potential positive influences of gut health for metabolic health, for bone health, for improved mood, healthy sleep, body weight, as well as blood sugar level maintenance. So basically, gut health has shown to be impacting our heart health overall and our colonic health. This shows the importance of any tool that maintains and modifies gut health. At the same time, it's also very important to note that gut is believed to impact a wide range of diseases and conditions as well. So maintaining that balance of getting the best out of out of the gut health, but also making sure that the gut microbiota are maintained in a healthy equilibrium. Dysbiosis or imbalance of gut microbiota has been associated with multiple diseases. Again, similar to the benefits, the harmful effects are also a very active area of research, and level of evidence available to support these vary by the area. So gut health dysbiosis of microbiota has been associated with heart disease, increased issues with gut and brain axis, such as neurodegenerative diseases, psychiatric disorders in some extent, research ongoing, but also obesity, type 2 diabetes have been known to be influenced by dysbiosis or imbalance of gut microbiota. This is an opportunity for us. This is an opportunity for dairy food to impact gut health. How do we use the dairy consumption? How do we use the vast amount of variety of nutrients present in dairy food to support gut health is an area that we as State Lal have been investing for a very long time. We have a very active research program exploring gut health, exploring the impact of gut microbiota on various health outcomes, and there is a great carrier for prebiotic and probiotic impact, which we'll come to in a second. So just starting with a very top line, what does dairy contain and how does that link to potential impact on gut health? We have divided that into just two simple buckets. One is milk. Of course, milk contains protein, as we saw. Milk contains lactose, which is a prebiotic ingredient, supports the growth of multiple beneficial bacteria. Dairy also contains calcium and magnesium, as we saw. Dairy contains a high level of bioactive peptides, several of them, which are anti-inflammatory and also is antimicrobial, anti-harmful microbiota. Fermented dairy foods on this other side has a very different function, supportive but very different function. So fermented dairy foods contain fermentation byproducts. They also contain active microbial cultures. And when they reach gut, they have a prebiotic effect. We'll come to that in a second, but what the ultimate effect is because of those properties, we see decrease in pathogens. Dairy food has the ability to decrease gut permeability, which makes pathogen intake resistant to entry into the body. Dairy food has also been known to improve lactobacilli and bifidobacteria, which are the beneficial bacteria present in the gut. How do we actually use this basic role of dairy for gut health and improve that and build on that by addition of fiber? So what would be the role of fiber in gut health is the first start, and then we will look at how can fiber be used to enhance and build upon the benefits of dairy for gut health. So just to remind everyone, fibers, dietary fibers are usually derived from the edible part of the plant. It is characterized by being not digested or absorbed within the small intestine. So it reaches the large intestine in a nearly intact form. And that's where in the large intestine, it gets broken down by the bacteria that are present in there. The outcome of that is physiologically beneficial, in fact, to human health. It may be driven through increase in good bacteria, which can use these metabolites as their food, and several other mechanisms. But the worrying thing is, if you look at the graph on the left-hand side, what you see in that gray bar above is not a single country in the world where trustworthy surveys are available. The entire population is meeting the dietary recommended intake of dietary fiber. So that fiber gap, that's the green bar you see at the top, is the gap between what each of these countries have as recommended daily allowance and what the population intake is seen in that columns at the bottom. That fiber gap is what we are trying to target, and public health messages are being targeted across the world. We looked at some consumer surveys, and what we found that there are usually three main reasons why fiber is not consumed daily, or not at least in enough significant amounts to meet the dietary recommendations. We found through our surveys that nearly 1/3 of the population think that they're getting enough fiber. So there's an educational opportunity there about what are the fiber-rich food and where the fiber can come from. Nearly about a third of the people we surveyed also feel that fiber containing products are very expensive, and that's the barrier to entry. That's what the reason we heard that they are not consuming enough fiber, they can't afford to buy, or think they can't afford to buy, or think these fiber enriched food are expensive. And the third reason, nearly 20% of the people who replied to our survey felt that there aren't enough products. There isn't enough choice of fibers that contain fiber. So very diverse reasons why consumers are not getting enough fiber in their diet. Fibers are very diverse molecules, although they are covered under the umbrella of dietary fiber. Fibers come in very different sizes, molecular structures, fermentation profile, and their physical properties. Fiber is not a uniform group of ingredients, they're very diverse. We always say that because different fibers have very different mechanism on how they impact on gastrointestinal digestive tract, the recommendation would be to have a variety of fibers. Like the recommendation is to have a variety of fruit and veg in your diet, the recommendation also is, the research shows us that different varieties of fiber would provide the more holistic and wider benefit for human health. So just to give you a top-line summary, some fibers act through increasing the viscosity of the food, which means the food moves stronger when it's consumed, which means you feel fuller for longer, for example, which also means that the glucose and calories in the food are absorbed slowly, so that improves your blood glucose control. Some fibers reduce the rate at which bile acids are reabsorbed, and that means it has the potential to affect your blood cholesterol levels. Some fibers, when they pass through the gastrointestinal tract, absorb water, become bulky, increases the stool bulk, and help with constipation. Some fibers, when they get fermented in the gut by gut microbiota, produce metabolites that are called short chain fatty acids. And when the short chain fatty acids in the gut increase, that improves the absorption of certain minerals, that inhibits growth of pathogens in the gut, that improves the integrity of the gut surface, and all of that is known to have a positive impact on immunity. So as you can see, different fibers have different metabolic fate. And as a result of that, a variety of fibers in the diet is always better to get a full benefit of the fiber portfolio. Just to remind ourselves what a prebiotic fiber is. So as I have been saying, fibers by definition need to get to the large intestine without being broken down. However, not every fiber is a prebiotic. A prebiotic fiber especially are the ones that get broken down in the gut, in the large intestine, but then they are shown to have a beneficial effect to the host, to the human that's consuming those fibers. So a fiber becomes a prebiotic only when it improves and changes the gut microbiota, but also when it has the evidence to prove that it has a beneficial impact to the host. That's when a fiber becomes a prebiotic fiber. So prebiotic fiber, as I said, increases the number and the type of microbiota. It increases the microbial diversity in the gut because those microbiota can use broken down fiber as their food. This microbial changes improves gut function, reduces inflammation, has an impact on lipid metabolism, and as a result of that, then you see the health benefits, which are a required component for a fiber to be classified as a prebiotic. So just to clarify that not every dietary fiber is a prebiotic fiber. And then by the same understanding, you can then expect that fiber provide a lot more health benefits than previously thought. So the traditional wisdom tells us that fiber is good for your regularity, lack of constipation, cure of constipation. That's all true. But science has told us the new technology available over the last decade or so has enlightened us for the benefits of fiber that go way beyond just constipation and regularity. This includes with help for immune response, this includes mental health, this includes oral health, and we are going to shortly look at some of those benefits and how they might be used for consumer health impact. Starting with bone health, of course, we said dairy is a good source of calcium, so this particular topic would be very interesting to this audience. Bone health, as we know, is impacted by calcium consumed throughout the growing years. So from toddler up to the teenage is when you accumulate your bone tissue. That's when the calcium intake is really, really important. Same for postmenopausal women who tend to lose bone tissue. That for that age group, bone health is really important, and calcium and dairy can help there as well. Specific fibers can actually help to increase calcium absorption and also retention of calcium in the bones. So we have looked into this through various deeply technical human intervention clinical trials. And what we have seen as one of the possible mechanisms is when our prebiotic fibers got fermented and showed the prebiotic impact of impacting gut microbiota in the gut, they also increased the short chain fatty acids. That meant the pH, the acidic environment in the gut became more acidic. The pH was dropped, which helped enhance mineral solubility. So minerals such as calcium became more soluble. The body was able to retain them, and it was also able to retain them in the bone tissue. So less calcium was lost through the body, which ultimately has the potential to impact bone health. And that's a very well-known, proven, and highly published area of various fibers and their impact on bone health. Nowadays, as we come out of pandemic, as the world is coming out of pandemic, we know that consumers are interested in health and well-being more than ever. They also know that food is one of the controllable factors they have, which can modulate their health. Consumers also are becoming more aware of importance of maintaining immunity. They have seen the importance of their basic health and immunity when facing something like a pandemic. The immune system, just to remind everyone, is a very complex network of cells, tissues, organs, and substances that help the body to fight infections and diseases. Some of it is inherent, and some of it is achieved via nutritional modulation. Main centers for immunity are located where pathogens are most likely to enter the body. That's just our clever anatomy and physiological design. So you can expect gut to be involved in maintaining and improving immunity. You can expect respiratory system to play a role in immunity, and same with urinary tract and reproductive system tract. That's where the immune system is highly localized and very impactful to stop the entry of the pathogens in the body. You would be surprised to know that 70 to 80% of immune cells of the body are actually present throughout the length of the gut. So that tells you how important gut is for maintaining immunity, and also how it can be modulated to enhance or support immunity as well. Um, Several nutrients have been known to impact immunity. Fibers is one of them, but most important thing to remember here is nutrients that affect the gut immunity. The gut-derived immunity is very highly likely to impact the disease outcome as well. We know consumers are interested in immunity. As I said, there are some interesting statistics on the right side from the consumer survey. Two-thirds of consumers we surveyed say that they're more conscious about their immune health, they're interested in products that address immune health, and they also associate fibers for immune health. So that's a very high percentage of consumers that we surveyed that understand the importance of immunity, understand the importance of nutrition, and understand the importance of fibers in maintaining immunity. Prebiotic fibers play an important role in immune function. Prebiotic fibers, as we saw earlier, get fermented in the large intestine. They produce short-chain fatty acids. These short-chain fatty acids have various ways of impacting immunity. Some of the mechanisms that have been looked at are by improving the gut barrier function, strengthening the gut barrier function, which right from the beginning makes the entry of the pathogens into the body difficult. These short-chain fatty acids also has the potential to improve and enhance the prevalence of beneficial bacteria in the gut. All of these factors act together to support immunity for the host. This is a very, very active area of research. Evidence for some fibers is better than others. Various evidence for some other nutrients is also better than others. But important factor to know here is prebiotic fibers have the potential to impact immunity. Other very interesting and, as you can see, a highly important area of research going on in this field is to look at impact of gut microbiota on obesity and its outcome. On the left-hand side, I don't expect you to read this figure, but it just shows you how complex obesity is. This diagram talks about how obesity is a multisystemic problem, how it is very complex, manifold, and interdependent, from societal issues to psychological issues to dietary issues to environmental issues to genetics. Obesity is an extremely complex area. The most interesting area for research right now is the impact of gut microbiota can have on energy balance. Gut microbiota can impact both sides of the energy balance. They can have an impact on influencing the energy utilization by the host, and they can also impact how energy is stored within the host. And there are other mechanisms in play as well. So if gut microbiota are able to reduce the low-grade inflammation within the body, it may have a potential to reduce outcomes of obesity, such as type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, atherosclerosis, etc. Watch the space, a lot happening in this area, but it's very exciting area to work in to look at how modulation of gut microbiota can impact or at least have a role to play in a complex public health issue such as obesity. Another exciting area we have been studying at Lyle with our fiber portfolio is its impact on gut-brain axis. Sounds implausible at the first instance of how can intestine have an impact on the brain, but gut-brain axis is a bidirectional communication. So gut sending signals to the brain, brain signals sending signals to the gut. This has been known, again, colloquially and traditionally, it's been known, stress and anxiety causing diarrhea being one of them. Irritable bowel syndrome has its linked into the gut-brain axis and also gut microbiota. So it's known that there is a communication between central and enteric nervous system and also peripheral intestinal functions. We know that there's a physical and chemical connection between the brain and the gut. We know that microbiota are one of the most important regulators that control this communication. And we also know that there are various routes through which the gut can take instructions from the brain and also instruct brain. Short chain fatty acids, again, are one of those key molecules. So all of these things point towards a possible role of modulation of gut microbiota for a variety of diseases that are associated with central nervous system and cognition. You see some of them mentioned on the right-hand side. We consider this area very important for future understanding of role of fibers and gut microbiota, and we have been investing in this area through human clinical studies as well. Having looked at what role gut microbiota can play, having looked at how fibers, dietary fibers, prebiotic fibers specifically can be used to impact gut microbiota to ultimately impact the health outcomes, it's important for us to know the challenges and opportunities that this area provides for dairy industries such as yourself. Let's just remind ourselves of basics of some of the dietary fiber functionality. Fiber is an important tool. So we looked at fiber gap, adding dietary fiber, soluble fiber to the diet as fortification or at an individual level, of course, can add to the daily fiber intake and helps to reduce the fiber gap. But also it's important for ourselves to remember that some fibers, because of their functionality, are excellent tools to take sugar and calories out of food. So they can help towards the obesity crisis by reducing the caloric content of food and beverages, at the same time adding fiber as a positive nutrient. To help consumers understand their fiber intake, remember, number of consumers don't think they are deficient in fibers when they actually are. So to help consumers very quickly assess their fiber intake, Tate & Lyle, in collaboration with British Nutrition Foundation, has developed an online tool, a fiber calculator, that you can visit on our corporate website or by screening on the square on the right hand side. And that will take you to the fiber calculator where you can answer some simple questions and get an idea and also tips to increase your fiber intake. I would encourage you to go and have a play with our fiber calculator. It's also important to see what would be the public health impact of increasing fiber intake of the population as a whole. In order to do that, the scientists in our teams, with the help from clever health modeling experts, have looked at UK and then later on some other countries' fiber intake data and looked at what would happen if there was fiber fortification in certain percentage of food and beverages within the allowable limits by the regulators of those countries, and what would be the impact on public health outcomes if there was a fiber fortification or reformulation using fibers, whether that reformulation is aimed at reducing sugar and calories or whether that reformulation is aimed at improving gut microbiota and gut health. Ultimately, if the fiber intake increases, what would happen to the downstream impact on public health? Some very striking results on this slide. We found that nearly half the population in the UK would be meeting their daily amount of fiber intake by doing some very simple adjustments to reformulation. And this paper is published, so you can very easily go and have a look at the methodology we used and how the scientists looked at this modeling. We also found that about 6% of the population would be helped to reduce their weight by consuming more fiber-enriched products. We also found that nearly 2/3 of the population would be able to reduce their risk of type 2 diabetes by consuming more fiber. There are several pieces of interesting insights in this publication, so please have a look. That will give you an idea of how simple strategies and how simple reformulation with fiber has an impact on public health and some of the challenges that are facing everywhere, but also in South Africa, such as obesity and type 2 diabetes. So to summarize, on gut health and its for role of fibers and dairy food, dietary factors, as we saw, play an important role in modulating health and wellness through lifespan through its impact on gut microbiota. We also saw that prebiotic fibers specifically can be used as a tool for fortification, and they can be used to reduce sugar and calories, as well as to have a positive impact on gut health. We also saw some of the health benefits of dietary fibers, soluble fibers, added fibers, but I will briefly touch upon how easy it is to include soluble fibers in formulations for the dairy industry. Soluble fibers are able to provide some key benefits for formulators, for food scientists, for technologists such as yourself. It is shown to improve viscosity and mouthfeel, as well as food suspension in fruit and yogurt type of applications. It helps to stabilize protein and flavor release in yogurts and acidified milks. And then it enhances the glossy appearance of ice cream. So there's several formulation reasons why dietary fibers can help you get to the consumer acceptance levels high, and also to help uh, the health demands and health provide health benefits to the consumer that's conscious of what they're eating and consuming in today's post-pandemic world. This overall enhances the attractiveness of the category for health-conscious consumers. So to summarize and close, use of fibers for gut health, use of dairy to build on its inherent nutritional profile to improve gut health is a consumer need. Consumers are not getting enough fiber. Dairy can provide that by adding fibers into the composition. Customers are facing several challenges. Customers want to provide the taste and the texture that consumers enjoy. So they want to provide healthier products, but they don't want the consumers to make a choice between the tastefulness and the health. So healthy products being made a bit more tastier and tasty products made a bit more healthier is always the goal of our customers. Formulating with soluble fibers that are easily blended allows the consumption of fibers by all age groups, even if the elderly or the younger population who may not be able to consume as much fiber as needed, soluble fibers provide a tool to do that. Soluble fibers have excellent digestive tolerance. We did not touch upon that today, but there is extensive literature available on our website as well, with clinical evidence of very high levels of digestive tolerance, which means they can be easily incorporated into the product at much higher levels than was previously thought. And they provide consumer-friendly labeling. So as solutions for gut health, as the awareness of gut health increases, dairy industry can play a huge role by building on its inherent nutritional qualities, by reformulation, by reducing sugar and calories, adding fibers, all towards catering to a health conscious consumer of today without having to compromise on taste and texture and appearance. I hope this was useful. We will be happy to have any questions before or after. Thank you very much for your attention. And again, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks a lot.